This king was truly cruel. He ordered every woman in the kingdom to be locked inside their homes. Perhaps as punishment from the heavens, his many consorts gave birth to 60 daughters in a row, yet not a single son. Enraged, he cast out dozens of his concubines. Even then, he stubbornly clung to his belief that sons were worth more than daughters. When the queen was about to give birth, he prayed desperately to the heavens for a son. The royal astrologer even prophesied that this child would become the heir destined to lead the elven kingdom to greater glory. Meanwhile, in a library from another world, a girl had already been living there for an entire month. She was captivated by the magic of books, fascinated by how they revealed the thoughts of people from centuries ago. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a mysterious tome, and within it was the story of the Star Moon continent. The Elven Kingdom, an ancient realm with a long and storied history. Among its rulers was Cheno, one of the greatest kings of the elves, who crushed rebellions with thunderous might and ushered the kingdom into a golden era. Yet he was also a paranoid monarch, under whose reign the court saw no trace of women. This iron-willed king found every excuse to drive women out of public life, confining them within the walls of their homes. Obsessed with the idea of having a son to inherit the throne, he ended up with countless daughters, but not a single prince. The scene shifted. While the girl was engrossed in her book, she accidentally fell off the ladder. As the book hit the floor, a flash of light erupted and she felt the world spin around her. When she opened her eyes again, she was shocked. Why did everything look so real? And to her surprise, the king seated on the throne was incredibly handsome. Even stranger, she realized she could clearly hear their conversation. That was when she understood she had crossed into this world. Unfortunately, she had ended up in the body of the queen's newborn child. By coincidence, the queen named the baby Xueyu. Yes, she had become a little infant. The first thing the king did after holding her was to lift her clothes and check her gender. In the grand plaza before the palace, the king raised the infant high and declared to his people that the elven kingdom had been blessed with a prince. But she had not turned into a boy. The little prince receiving blessings before the nation was not her. Inside the palace, the girl lay helpless, crying in her heart, "I'm the queen's real child." The queen, too, was filled with despair, for the king had already proclaimed to the world that she had given birth to a prince, naming him Zhaoban. Poor Xueyu, however, was left abandoned and alone. The truth was cruel. The paranoid king had used his younger brother's child to pose as the queen's son. To protect this secret, he even killed Zhaoban's birth mother, and bound all who knew the truth with deadly restrictions. Meanwhile, the real Xueyu was to be sent to the Tower of the Gods as a sacrifice. Learning the truth, Xueyu, who had crossed into this world, was devastated. What kind of nightmare beginning is this? How am I supposed to survive? After settling everything, the king came before his daughter, but the tiny infant didn't interest him in the slightest. He lifted her up roughly, muttering in disdain, "Such a little thing, not cute at all." The little princess fumed inwardly. "You don't like me? Well, I don't like you either." The king then gave a cold command, "Bring in Prince Zhaoban. Remember this, queen, he is your child now." Casting another look of disgust at the princess, he added, "As for her, send her to the Tower of the Gods." The so-called Tower of the Gods was in truth a place of sacrifice. Anyone sent there faced only death, their soul said to be claimed by the gods. Hearing this, the princess burst into tears. Are you even my father? Who could be this heartless?" The queen collapsed in despair, crying as she begged, "Xueyu is my own flesh and blood. Please, my king, spare her. I'll send her away and no one will ever know her true identity." Fortunately, the cold-faced monarch still held a shred of pity. Before leaving, he uttered only one warning, "Make sure I never see her again." A carriage quietly rolled out of the palace, and in a secluded place, the queen handed Xueyu over to a man. From that moment on, mother and daughter would be separated forever, forced to live their own lives apart. Though the queen was filled with sorrow, she had no choice. And so the newborn princess was sent away. A few days later, in a manor on the outskirts of a small town, a group of maids whispered among themselves, "I heard the baron brought back a child. He already has 3 sons and now an illegitimate daughter from outside? Poor lady of the house, she must be heartbroken." Inside the baron's chambers, the lady read a letter and sighed deeply. This child, truly a pitiful one. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the door burst open. It was the Baron's second son, Anner, along with the eldest, Muriel, and the youngest, Avery. They had just heard from the servants that their father had brought home a child. Baron Weir, who was present, spoke calmly, "Come and take a look. You all must know this. Starting today she is your sister. Her name will be Xiuyu Weir." Upon hearing this, Anner instantly exploded. "I'll never acknowledge some mistress's bastard. Her veins carry the blood of a wicked woman." Xiuyu let out angry little cries, babbling furiously as if she wanted to curse him, but she was still too young to speak. Even the usually composed and well-mannered eldest son cast her a cold glare. Inwardly, little Xiuyu shivered. Oh no, these brothers don't look easy to get along with at all. Avery went even further, bluntly asking, "Dad, who's the mistress?" The Baron smacked his forehead. This misunderstanding was getting out of hand. The lady who knew the truth quickly stepped in. "I've already forgiven your father. Let's not bring this up again." Anner shouted in outrage, "Mother, this isn't worth it. That old man should just go live with his mistress instead." Seeing the situation spiral out of control, the lady sternly cut them off. "Enough. No one is allowed to speak of this again. All I know is that Xiuyu is now part of our family." Hearing this, Anner nearly fainted from anger. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The Baron and his wife exchanged helpless looks. It seems the children really can't accept her. But that person has done us an enormous favor. Xiuyu's true identity must never be exposed, so I'll take the blame as her father. And so, little Xiuyu settled into the Weir household, though her brothers clearly despised her. Still, others treated her kindly, especially the lady of the house who cared for Xiuyu as if she were her own daughter. One day, the lady took Xiuyu for a stroll in the garden, where the little one basked contentedly in the sunlight. Suddenly, she spotted the second son playing with his dog, Wang Kai. The boy grew furious the moment he saw Xiuyu in his mother's arms. His eyes landed on the dog toy ball in his hand, and a wicked idea flashed through his mind. He hurled the ball straight at Xiuyu's head, shouting, "Wang Kai, fetch!" But instead, Wang Kai lunged at the lady, sending everyone nearby into a panic. Stumbling in fright, the lady lost her grip, and Xiuyu went flying from her arms. Only then did the second son's face twist into genuine shock. With a perfect free fall, little Xiuyu tumbled onto the grass, the pain so sharp she burst into tears. Wah! It hurt so bad. The lady rushed to scoop her up, frantically checking her. Oh heavens, is that a bump on her head? The Baron arrived just in time, demanding anxiously, "How's Xiuyu? If she hit her head, what are we going to do?" Tears streamed down the little one's face as she fumed inwardly. "You're the one with a broken head. I'm just in pain." After a thorough check by the doctor, it was confirmed to be nothing more than a surface injury. Everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. The lady lashed out at Anner in fury. "How could you do such a thing? If anything had happened to Xiuyu, how would you answer for it? And if your dog Wang Kai gets punished for this, what then? Has your conscience been eaten by dogs too? You'll be confined to your room for 3 months. Now hurry up and apologize to your sister." Though scolded, Anner still looked reluctant and defiant. The eldest brother pressed a firm hand on his shoulder, saying coldly, "You went too far this time." Avery then leaned in and whispered to his second brother, "That girl's a witch. You don't mess with her, you're an idiot." The eldest immediately turned and demanded of Avery, "Did you do something again?" Terrified, the youngest shook his head frantically. "No, I didn't do anything." But the eldest grabbed him by the collar and warned sternly, "Do you know the punishment for using black magic on ordinary people?" Avery, pale with fear, confessed at once, "Please don't punish me, big brother. I only used the weakest spell, just cursed her to lose 5 pounds. But then I realized, she's completely immune to black magic. If she's not a witch, then what is she?" The eldest's expression turned icy as he glared at him. "You dared to recklessly use black magic on someone?" When Anner reluctantly came to the bedside to apologize, his face unexpectedly flushed red. In truth, Xiuyu had already noticed it. Back when she was thrown to the ground, Anner's expression had been filled with panic and worry. He hadn't truly meant to hurt her. He was just being childish, trying to give the outsider a scare. With that in mind, Xiuyu flashed him an adorable smile and mumbled, "Big brother." That one word sent Anner's face burning crimson. She actually smiled at me. He suddenly grew flustered, at a complete loss for what to do. When Xiuyu reached out her tiny hand, he instinctively took it, overwhelmed by the strange, heartwarming sensation. So this is what it feels like to have a little sister. Anner felt as if his heart had been struck squarely in the chest. Watching the scene, the Baron and his wife finally relaxed. After all, children were simple at heart. Ever since that day, Anner practically lived in the nursery, running in at least 10 times a day. Seeing his enthusiasm, the lady could only sigh and remind him, "Your sister needs to sleep. Why don't you go play outside?" But Anner put on a pitiful face. "Father ordered me to stay in confinement, so I can't go anywhere. Why does my sister sleep so long? Fine, I'll just keep her company." Meanwhile, poor Wang Kai the dog was practically growing mold from loneliness. Anner even urged his mother, "You should rest. I'll watch her." The lady, touched, thought her son was finally maturing. But for Xiuyu, this was far from good news. When he saw Xiuyu lying still, Anner panicked. "Don't tell me she stopped breathing?" He poked her chubby little cheek with a finger. Soft and bouncy, way too fun to resist. She moved. "She's alive," he shouted, poking again and again. "Hey, your favorite brother is here. The great me is right here. Wake up already." Jolted awake by the noise, little Xiuyu groaned inwardly. "I just dreamed of 10,000 crows cawing at once. Don't tell me it was this brat." She waved her tiny fists, babbling angrily. "I'm exhausted. You big bully." But in Anner's eyes, her flailing looked like, "Oh, she wants me to hold her." Inside, Xiuyu was screaming, "Go away. I just want to sleep." With trembling hands, Anner reached out, shamelessly muttering to himself, "Fine, I guess the great me will reluctantly hold you." Even their youngest brother had never dared ask such a thing. Clumsy and awkward, he lifted Xiuyu into his arms, exclaiming, "Wow, she's so soft, and she even smells nice." But Xiuyu was terrified inside. "This idiot is holding me all wrong. Don't drop me, please." Desperate, she clung to Anner for balance. Anner completely misunderstood, grinning from ear to ear. "So my sister actually likes me this much?" He began bouncing her around happily. "Since you adore me so much, I'll graciously accept you." Xiuyu, however, was on the verge of passing out. She wasn't happy at all. This troublemaker barged in every day, leaving her no chance to sleep in peace. And so little Xiuyu endured 3 long months of torment. Though the lady cared for her diligently, she couldn't help but wonder, why did Xiuyu no longer even have the strength to nurse? What she didn't know was that Anner forced Xiuyu to play with him every day. He had completely turned her into his personal toy. One day, the Baron father decided to test the children with an arithmetic problem. For Anner, who could even get 1 + 1 wrong, the sight of so many numbers made his forehead break out in sweat. All he could do was guess blindly. The eldest sneered, "You're such an idiot, you can't even guess right." Even the 3-year-old answered correctly. Curious, Xiuyu wondered what kind of question could stump him so badly. When she crawled over to peek at the slate, she froze. "Wait, isn't this just kindergarten-level math back on Earth?" Seeing Anner miss the answer again, the Baron sighed helplessly. "At this rate, I might as well send you off to a monastery." Anner panicked at once. "No way. My dream is to become a knight charging on the battlefield." The Baron shook his head. Ever since King Chenno ascended the throne, there hasn't been a single illiterate knight in our elven kingdom. The moment Xiuyu heard the name Chenno, fury surged within her. "That bastard, it's all his fault I ended up like this." She crawled up to the slate, examining the next question. Just then the Baron urged Anner, "Well, what's the second answer?" Anner nearly tore his hair out. "How am I supposed to know? This is impossible." Xiuyu pointed with a baby's babble at one of the choices. With nothing to lose, Anner repeated it aloud. To his shock, it was correct. Overjoyed, he scooped Xiuyu up and smothered her with kisses. "You really are my little lucky star." Dizzy from being swung around, Xiuyu fumed inwardly. "Lucky star? More like you're hopelessly dumb. Nothing but a fool." Even the Baron, watching, broke out in cold sweat. The youngest, Avery, immediately accused his second brother of cheating, pointing at Xiuyu. It was that little witch who told him the answer. Anner, finally getting one right for once, refused to admit it and snapped back in anger. The Baron stepped forward, scolding Anner for not studying properly, but also pressed Avery. "I heard you used to curse on your sister?" Xiuyu nearly exploded with rage. That little brat actually cursed me? I swear I'll tear him apart. Avery looked pitiful as he explained, I only cursed her to lose 5 pounds. But it didn't work. I think she must be an altered physique. In this world, an altered physique referred to the extremely rare few who were completely immune to magic. Furious, little Shuyu wailed, I barely weigh anything to begin with. You trying to kill me? Avery shot her a sharp glare, making Shuyu's heart pound nervously. This kid isn't simple. Could he have figured out I'm not from this world? Either way, I'm not about to lose that much weight. In her dreams, Shuyu imagined having 3 incredibly handsome older brothers, each one more dashing than the last. But when she opened her eyes after waking, she froze. What? That was only a dream. The realization left little Shuyu feeling disappointed, though the thought still struck her as unbelievable. Wait a second. I really do have 3 brothers. They may all be unreliable now, but will they actually grow up to be that handsome? Remembering Dream Manor, she sighed inwardly. He was so gentle. If only he were a bit smarter. As for her eldest brother Muriel, she couldn't quite picture what he'd become. And Avery, he actually cursed her with magic. That brat definitely wasn't fit to be called a good brother. While Shuyu was lost in thought, the lady approached her, saying they would be going into town for supplies and planned to bring her along. After trying on outfit after outfit, they finally settled on one before Shuyu completely lost her patience. The moment Anna heard about the trip, he rushed over, knowing that every time his mother went out, she returned with plenty of gifts. When the lady firmly refused him, he shamelessly added, if Shuyu misses me, she'll cry. In truth, the lady already knew Shuyu had been annoyed enough by him lately. Without his constant pestering, she'd be much happier. Having shaken off the clingy Anna, the group finally made it safely into town. Gazing at the architecture which resembled medieval Europe from Earth, little Shuyu began to grasp more about this world. She then overheard townsfolk discussing the Tower of the Gods. Apparently, people here truly believed in the gods who were said to grant humans the power of magic. The little girl's curiosity sparked. I wonder if I'll be able to learn magic too? The lady stepped into a dessert shop, intending to buy some sweets to take back as a little compensation for Anna. But the moment she entered, someone called out to her. 3 elegantly dressed women greeted her with smiles, yet every word reeked of fake sweetness. One of them immediately struck a nerve. So this child, she must be the bastard daughter from that mistress, right? Hearing this, Shuyu's heart sank. Oh no, I've got a really bad feeling about this. The women chattered on. Never thought we'd run into the Baroness here. Then again, after what happened in your household, no wonder you wouldn't want to show your face. Baron Weir is far too soft. He still hasn't exposed that woman, has he? Could it be he's still trying to protect her? After her biting words, the woman even covered her mouth, laughing like a gossiping ant. The others joined in, their voices dripping with false sympathy and cold indifference. At that moment, regret pricked the lady's heart. Why did I ever come into this place? Seeing her being mocked, little Shuyu fumed. How dare they bully her? What should I do? Then, faced with the scheming women's ridicule, the tiny girl deliberately crushed the grape in her hand. Flat. The juice burst out, splattering all over the mouthy woman's fine clothes. The kind-hearted lady quickly checked on Shuyu, worried the little one might have choked on the grape. To her surprise, the baby mumbled out a faint, "Mama." The lady's eyes welled up with tears. Shuyu had actually called her mother. And then the little one planted a sloppy kiss right on her cheek, leaving the lady stunned and completely melted on the spot. Even the gossiping trio nearby were floored. Who would have thought this child could be so adorable? Beaming, the lady explained, she's just too attached to me. Though she isn't my own by birth, she feels even closer than if she were. She seized the chance to counter. Women shouldn't put men above everything. Sometimes having a loyal and loving child is more precious than anything. Stroking Shuyu's tiny head with affection, the sweet mother-daughter scene left the scheming woman so furious she clenched her fists tight. After all, her own child was still fostered outside and hadn't been allowed to return. Quickly changing the subject, she turned to flatter another. Now Lady Ruth here is truly remarkable. Her elder sister is the little prince's personal maid, and a rising favorite in His Majesty's court. But Lady Ruth's brows furrowed deeply. My sister has her own hardships. It said the previous maids were all executed for unknown reasons. Lately, the palace replaces its maids every 6 months. Hearing this made Xiuyu's heart tremble. The king must fear the prince's identity being exposed. That's why he secretly disposes of the palace maids. Records later noted that the Weir family treated Xiuyu with great kindness, allowing her to spend a peaceful childhood under their care. Sadly, once the king and prince discovered her whereabouts, her life plunged into misery, a puppet on strings with no will of her own. Thinking of this, Xiuyu burned with indignation. Since I've begun this life, I refuse to sit and wait for death. But in this world, how can I take control of my own fate? Then, upon finding a book titled Introduction to Magic, a spark lit within her heart. So that's it. If I can master magic, I'll finally have something I can rely on. While the lady was busy buying stacks of books for the eldest prince, little Xiuyu babbled and pointed at one book in particular. The lady was puzzled. How could a child who doesn't even know her letters be interested in books? Yet the moment Xiuyu held the book in her hands, she made a silent vow. She would master magic and protect herself. At just 1 year old, she was already reading. Surrounded by dazzling toys and beautiful clothes, none of them tempted her. While everyone speculated on what gift she might choose, Xiuyu picked up a book titled Introduction to Magic and began flipping through it as if she understood. The lady couldn't help but chuckle while the maids gasped in astonishment. Unbelievable. A 3-month-old child who prefers books. But Xiuyu herself was equally stunned. The writing of this world should be foreign to me, yet I can understand every word. From the book, she learned that magic on the Star Moon continent was believed to have 2 origins. One school claimed the gods created the world, and incantations were the keys to unlocking divine power. Another school argued that the world was made of various elements, and spells functioned by arranging those elements into order. In short, to master magic, one must first learn the language of spells. Just as Xiuyu was immersed in her studies, a maid started waving a cat teaser in front of her, nearly driving her insane. Do I really look that dumb? Being a baby is way too hard. I just want to read in peace. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed her eldest brother quietly reading. At 15, none of the servants dared to disturb him. Xiuyu gazed at him with envy. When will I finally grow up like that? Soon, dinner time arrived, yet little Xiuyu was still clutching her book, reading intently. The lady found it odd. She couldn't understand why Xiuyu no longer liked sleeping, only holding books all day. Could such a small child really understand what she's reading? Avery quickly seized the chance to exclaim, "See? I told you she's a witch, but you wouldn't believe me." In return, Anna shot him a fierce warning glare. Baron Weir, however, was delighted. Children grow so fast. Before long, Xiuyu will be sitting at the table eating with us. No sooner had the words fallen than, snap, the entire room was swallowed by darkness. Xiuyu suddenly realized, even in this world, blackouts could happen. Then, without warning, a ball of fire flared to life, glowing steadily in Muriel's hand. With a single sweep of his arm, whoosh, a massive fire phoenix burst forth, circling majestically around the room. Xiuyu's eyes went wide in shock, but soon her excitement surged. This is magic. The fiery phoenix darted past, igniting the candles along the walls, and in an instant the room shone as bright as day. Little Xiuyu was utterly awestruck. Her eldest brother was a grand mage. With just a wave of his hand, he could summon blazing flames, and she couldn't help but admire him deeply. From that day on, Xiuyu often crawled to her eldest brother's door, daydreaming that she too could one day learn magic. But the cold Muriel would always pick her up and deliver her straight back to the lady. "Keep an eye on Xiuyu. Don't let her bother me." To her, Muriel seemed like a devil at those moments, scaring her so badly she didn't dare breathe. At last, she had encountered the first immovable obstacle in this world. No matter how much she tried to act cute or playful, her eldest brother remained completely unmoved. At 15, Muriel was the textbook definition of a prodigy. In an elven kingdom where public education was still undeveloped, his exceptional brilliance caught the eye of a sage, who recommended him for early admission into the Royal Academy. Yet his nature was cold and detached. Beyond his studies, nothing else could stir his interest. One day outside the Royal Academy, Anna was sent on an errand to deliver something to his elder brother. To his surprise, he saw Muriel trailed by a group of girls, one of whom boldly invited him to lunch. Muriel glanced at Xiuyu, a spark flashing in his eyes. He scooped her up and replied coolly, "Sorry, I have to take care of my little sister." Both Anna and Shuayu were stunned. Since when has Big Brother ever taken care of her? Hearing this, the girl's face fell and she turned away in disappointment. Muriel explained calmly, "That was the Duke's daughter. She's not someone we can afford to offend." After all, among the noble ranks, barons stood at the very bottom, and the Weir family was nothing more than that. Watching the Duke's daughter leave, Muriel smirked slightly. Shuayu makes a pretty useful prop. From then on, he even brought little Shuayu into class, using her as a shield to keep away other girls who might disturb his studies. As Shuayu watched the teacher lecturing passionately, she was shaken to the core. So this is what magic incantations are like. She had tried everything to win Muriel's favor without success. Yet by sheer accident she finally got what she wanted. Muriel glanced at little Shuayu, surprised to see her listening even more intently than he was. He poked her chubby cheek, only to be met with a look of pure annoyance, as if she were blaming him for interrupting class. The more Muriel observed her, the less he could figure her out. Still, she was useful. She kept wave after wave of girls from bothering him. Even Anna lost the chance to hold her for a while. And so, 5 years quietly passed. In his letter to the Queen, Baron Weir reported that the little princess was safe and well. She was bright and clever, and everyone who met her praised her. She loved to sit by Muriel's side reading, spending entire days without a fuss. She also enjoyed playing with Anna like a sprite gifted from the heavens. "I believe it is because she has inherited your highness's sacred bloodline. I hope the princess may one day reunite with you soon." After finishing the letter, the Baron sighed heavily. This might be the last he would ever write to the Queen. The palace had ordered that no further correspondence was needed. Knowing that Shuayu could grow up safely was enough. At that moment, little Shuayu was telling everyone the story of Little Red Riding Hood, something none of them had ever heard before. Yet her foster parents couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't entirely a good sign. For Shuayu did not seem like an ordinary child at all. She was too smart, too understanding, like a little adult trapped in a child's body. The Baron himself grew uneasy. If her brilliance remained confined to the countryside, it might be fine. But if a prince or minister were to take notice of her, she could be drawn into the dangerous struggles of court. And then her true identity might no longer stay hidden. Just then a knock came at the door. Muriel entered and spoke bluntly, "Shuayu is already 5 years old. She should have a tutor by now. What do father and mother plan to do?" The Baron and his wife exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Muriel continued, "Shuayu is gifted, perhaps even more so than I was at her age. With proper education, she could one day become someone the entire kingdom admires." The lady panicked at once. "Isn't that exactly what we fear most? I only want Shuayu to stay by my side, safe and sound." Muriel grew agitated. "Mother, how can you say that? Haven't you always treated Shuayu as your own child?" But before he could go on, the Baron cut him off coldly. "She's still too young. We'll discuss this later." Their raised voices quickly caught the attention of the maids, who whispered among themselves, "They're arguing over Lady Shuayu? Muriel has always been obedient. Who would have thought he'd defy the Baron for her?" These words reached Avery's ears. Already displeased, his irritation only deepened. He headed toward his father's chambers, wanting to see what was going on. At that moment, bang! Muriel stormed out, ignoring his younger brother's call, leaving without looking back. Seeing this, Avery's heart grew even more unsettled. Why is Big Brother's attention only on that little witch? In the past, his mother and brothers had doted on him. He had been the center of the family's love. But ever since Shuayu arrived, everything had changed. No one paid attention to him anymore. Even when he was hungry, his mother would simply tell him to go ask the cook for food. Everyone revolved around that so-called illegitimate child. Why does she get to take everything that should have been mine? Just then Shuayu pushed the door open. Avery gritted his teeth and forced out the words, "I will never accept you." The declaration left Shuayu frozen in place. Her heart sank with disappointment. "So it's true, you can't make everyone like you. In this family, he's the only one who still resents me. Truly, no matter what world you end up in, you can never escape the curse of homework." At that moment, Anna was utterly devastated. "On such a beautiful day, I just want to play outside." Clutching Shuayu, he wailed, "Wah, Is it because I'm dumb and can't do my homework that you don't want to play with me anymore? Xiuyu sighed inwardly. This brother is fine in every way, except his brain's smaller than a walnut. She had overheard that Muriel once quarreled with the Baron over her. The Baron likely feared that if she received proper education and caught the attention of a royal sage, her true identity would be exposed. And indeed, history recorded that her downfall came precisely because her identity was revealed. Yet if she refused education, she would remain weak and ordinary. In that sense, Muriel wasn't wrong. Nor was Baron Weir wrong, he only wished to protect her. But Xiuyu resolved silently, I can't let them keep fighting on my account. With that thought, she hurried into Muriel's room, proposing that she would study on her own. The sharp Muriel saw through her at once. You're only saying this because you don't want me quarreling with father, aren't you? But have you considered? If that's the case, outsiders might assume you're being treated differently simply because you're an illegitimate child? Little Xiuyu replied firmly, I don't care what others think. I know father, mother, and my brothers all love me, that's enough. Muriel froze for a moment, then asked in surprise, so, you're saying that I love you too? The little girl puffed up with confidence. Of course you do. Muriel couldn't help but stroke her head affectionately. Don't worry. I won't argue with father and mother again. But wait, leave things to me. I have my own plans. A few days later, the manor welcomed a distinguished guest. Curious, little Xiuyu peeked from the doorway and saw that it was none other than the Grand Sage, Dr. David. He had come hoping to take Muriel as his student, grooming him for a future career in education, and today he sought the Baron and lady's approval. Upon hearing this, the Baron and his wife were naturally delighted. After all, Dr. David was a renowned scholar. As they conversed, a maid entered carrying fruit, only to bump into little Xiuyu, who had been sneaking a peek. Just as Xiuyu began to apologize, Muriel suddenly called her inside. Startled at being named, she stepped forward, puzzled as to why she was summoned. Muriel turned to the scholar and said, This is my younger sister, Xiuyu Weir, the one I told you about. Dr. David was taken aback. He hadn't expected the cold and distant Muriel to speak so fondly of his little sister. But Muriel quickly straightened his expression and replied coolly, Fondness is not the word, call it kindred spirit. In time, you'll see for yourself that my sister is anything but ordinary. With that, he beckoned Xiuyu over, signaling her to give her respects to Dr. David. The moment she heard the name Dr. David, Xiuyu's heart skipped a beat. This was the grand scholar of the Elven Kingdom, the King Cheno's most favored advisor. Fear struck her. If she ever entered the Royal Academy and her true identity was exposed to the king, it would be disastrous. Her only option was to hide her brilliance. So she immediately put on a timid act, clinging nervously to her elder brother's side. Muriel was astonished by her behavior, while Baron Weir quietly breathed a sigh of relief. This child's reaction. It's as if she understands exactly what I fear. Then Anna tugged at little Xiuyu, coaxing her patiently. You can recite the last 10 digits of pi, right? But Xiuyu burst into tears, wailing, Brother, I can't do it. Anna was heartbroken. You're not my sister. Give me back my real Xiuyu. As expected, Dr. David, watching this scene, dismissed her with a shake of his head. To him, the child was nothing remarkable, certainly not the prodigy Muriel had described. Having muddled through safely, Xiuyu let out a long sigh of relief. Now Dr. David likely wouldn't pay her any more attention, and the Weir couple could finally rest easy. But then she recalled they had just mentioned the queen. Since the day she was born, she hadn't seen her mother once. Is mother doing well? With that thought, she decided to sneak closer and eavesdrop. At that moment, the conversation turned to Emperor Cheno. Over the years, he had quelled countless rebellions and even brought races like the Night Elves under his banner. Truly one of the greatest kings in Elven history. With the queen's gentle touch to balance his rule, peace flourished. Queen Alita, born noble and known for her grace and kindness, was hailed as a blessing to the kingdom. A famous poet had even composed a verse in her honor. No bloom is free from withering or decay, but your eternal summer shall never fade. Xiuyu suddenly recited the line aloud, only then realizing in horror, she had just quoted a poem she remembered from history books. A round of applause followed. Dr. David smiled warmly. Little one, how do you know this poem? Xiuyu quickly feigned innocence. A traveling bard at the manor once recited it, so I memorized it. Please, Dr. David pulled out an envelope. It seems we already have the perfect candidate for this invitation. Each month, Her Majesty the Queen holds a royal banquet. If she learns that a 5-year-old child can already recite verses written in her praise, she will surely be delighted. Holding the invitation, Xiuyu was left flustered, instinctively glancing toward the Baron. The Baron hesitated. Letting her attend was risky, but this was the Queen's banquet after all. It has been 5 years. The Queen has not seen Xiuyu once. Perhaps this is the moment for mother and daughter to reunite. If we let it pass, the chance may never come again. With that thought, he finally agreed. Dr. David beamed. Excellent. In that case, your whole family must prepare yourselves for an audience with Her Majesty the Queen. Pity the Queen. After giving birth to a princess, she was forced to send her daughter away, all because the king refused to acknowledge a girl as his child. Now 5 years later, the little princess finally had a chance to enter the palace and reunite with her mother. Her foster mother dressed Xiuyu in fine clothes, praising, "Our little Xiuyu looks so beautiful today." After all, ever since the decline of House Weir, no one from the family had stepped foot into the royal palace for the past 20 years. Even the mischievous Anner grew serious, fussing over his attire. A plain hat could never match a face this handsome. The cold Muriel, too, was diligently practicing royal etiquette. The entire family busied themselves with preparations. Everyone except Avery, who sat sulking in the corner, still filled with resentment toward Xiuyu. Spotting his gloom, Xiuyu cheerfully invited, "Come with me to the banquet." Deep down she thought, "I've said it out loud now. You'd better give me some face." But Avery, ever the contrarian, scoffed, "Who'd want to go?" The remark left Xiuyu fuming. This brat is impossible. Yet even as he waved her off in disdain, Avery secretly thought to himself, "Going wouldn't hurt. There's no downside anyway." Meanwhile, inside the royal palace, Dr. David was urging the stubborn king to support his proposal for a nationwide education system. But King Chenno scoffed. "Do you mean to tell me that commoners should receive the same education as royals and nobles?" Dr. David patiently explained, "It is true that royals possess extraordinary bloodlines, but among the countless common folk, there are also those blessed with remarkable talent. I myself have a student whose brilliance even surpasses my own. If more such pillars of the realm could be nurtured, it would only strengthen our kingdom." Hearing this, the king paused in thought, then reluctantly nodded his approval. Sensing an opening, Dr. David pressed further. "My student has a younger sister. By law, she is not permitted to attend school. Yet her talent is exceptional." Before he could finish, Chenno cut him off sharply, his voice laced with disdain. "What use is education for a woman? A woman's place is in the home, serving her husband and raising children." Dr. David refused to yield. "But this child is truly extraordinary. At just 5 years old, she can already recite rare verses. Might she be granted an exception to study at the Royal Elementary? Moreover, she is of noble birth. The Weir family earned great merit in the days of the late emperor." With that, he laid Xiuyu's portrait on the table. Chenno waved his hand impatiently. "Enough. I've heard you. Leave me." Once Dr. David had departed, Chenno picked up Xiuyu's dossier, brows furrowed. But after a single glance, he tossed it carelessly into the wastebasket. The day of the Queen's banquet finally arrived. The Weir family came as promised, and even the prideful Avery ended up tagging along. Gazing up at the magnificent palace, little Xiuyu felt a strange sense of familiarity. Could this be the presence of my mother? As the family entered the hall, Anner bounced with excitement, his eyes wide at the sight of exotic races he had never seen before. Meanwhile, the stoic Muriel became the center of attention, leaving countless young ladies utterly captivated. But the Baron and his wife soon received disheartening news. The Queen, due to illness, would not be attending the banquet. Xiuyu would not see her mother tonight. The little girl's heart sank. The lively feast meant nothing to her anymore. Tugging gently at the Baron's sleeve, she whispered that she wanted to go to the restroom. With a heavy heart, Xiuyu wandered aimlessly. History says the exiled princess never reunited with the Queen. Please let me meet mother next time. Before she knew it, she had strayed too far. When she finally snapped back to her surroundings, "Oh no, where am I?" In her past life, she had constantly gotten lost. And now, even inside the book, that same hopeless sense of direction had followed her. On the deserted path, little Xiuyu trembled, her legs shaking uncontrollably with fear. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from behind. She whipped around and froze on the spot. A looming figure stretched out a massive hand toward her, barking, "Who are you? Why have you trespassed here?" Xiuyu was utterly petrified, cold sweat streaming down her face as her body quivered helplessly. At that moment, she remembered the lady's warning. Inside the palace, speak to no one except the queen herself. So she clamped her lips shut, refusing to answer. But when she finally saw the man's face clearly, terror struck her so hard she nearly collapsed on the spot. After a stunned second, she bolted in panic. "Oh no. Of all people, why did I run into that wretched man? Cheno. If he catches me, I'm done for." Pumping her tiny legs as fast as she could, she sprinted desperately. But suddenly, 5 burly guards blocked her path, and one of them seized her in a single grab. She flailed wildly, still trying to escape, but in the next instant she was handed over to the king. Cheno reached out with cold composure and caught her. Dangling helplessly in the air, Xiuyu looked up, and when she confirmed that it was indeed Cheno, her face turned deathly pale. His icy gaze locked onto her, sharp enough to pierce through flesh, like he wanted to end her right there. Little Xiuyu clenched her fists tight, fighting back tears with all her might. Yet the oppressive aura radiating from Cheno was overwhelming, demonic, like standing before the devil himself. "Insolent wretch! To trespass in the royal palace. Do you not know disturbing His Majesty is a crime punishable by death?" Terrified, Xiuyu tried to back away, but a guard seized her and dragged her off, threatening to feed her to the wolves until nothing remained but dung. She cried, reaching her tiny hands toward her father, begging for mercy, only to hear his cold command, "Kill her." Crack. In her mind, she was executed on the spot. But when she blinked, Xiuyu realized with shock, it had all been her imagination. Trembling, she looked up at her father in terror. "What do I do? Will he kill me? No, he doesn't know who I am. I should be safe, right?" Yet her body refused to stop shaking. King Cheno, watching her pitiful state, felt a flicker of surprise. Fearful, weak, lost, she looked like nothing more than a stray dog without a home. He turned away and ordered coldly, "Find out where this child came from." A guard immediately reported, "Today is the Queen's banquet. Most likely she slipped out from there. She has offended your Majesty. Shall I drag her off and have her executed?" But to their astonishment, Cheno waved his hand dismissively. "No. Send her back." The scene shifted. Outside the royal banquet hall, little Xiuyu was escorted back by the king's guards. As they strode through the crowd with imposing presence, whispers erupted among the guests. "Whose child is this? Such a grand escort." Someone with sharp eyes gasped, "Wait, that's the king's personal guard. This kid must be incredibly lucky." Xiuyu nearly tripped over herself. "Lucky? You mean lucky I didn't just lose my head?" Watching the guard detail march away, she finally let out a long sigh of relief. The Baron and his wife rushed toward her, panic written all over their faces. "Heavens, Xiuyu! We thought we'd lost you." Xiuyu quickly explained that she had only gotten lost and was escorted back by the guards. But she kept quiet about running into King Cheno. No need to worry her foster parents. Either way, she had survived for now. Her brother casually remarked, "Maybe little sister's been cursed," only to get smacked on the head by their mother, leaving a huge lump. Ever since Xiuyu had returned from the palace, she had been refusing to get out of bed. Every time she recalled her father's fierce, piercing gaze, dread gnawed at her, leaving her restless as though a thorn were lodged in her back. The Weir family grew increasingly worried. Xiuyu seemed weighed down by unspoken fears, no longer the lively child she once was. Muriel voiced his concern. Xiuyu was never this lazy before. Could she be ill? But the clever young man quickly reconsidered. At the banquet, she was escorted back by the king's guards. Did something happen inside the palace? Meanwhile, in the royal palace, King Cheno sat lost in thought. Suddenly, with a sharp snap of his fingers, the dossier he had tossed into the trash soared into the air and landed neatly in his hand, revealing him to be a master of magic. As he studied Xiuyu's portrait again, even Cheno looked slightly surprised. "So, That pitiful stray dog from that night was her? The next day in the headmaster's office, Muriel had barely stepped through the door when Dr. David greeted him with a beaming smile. Good news. I've finally accomplished what you asked of me. His Majesty has agreed. Your sister Shuayu may attend the Royal Elementary School. But don't celebrate too soon. The king insists on interviewing her personally. Back home, Muriel wasted no time in sharing the news with Shuayu. The moment she heard an interview with her father, Shuayu nearly collapsed. Big brother, are you kidding me? This is next-level sibling sabotage. Completely oblivious, Muriel continued encouraging her. Congratulations, Shuayu. Shuayu, on the verge of tears, thought despairingly, is this really how I meet my end? During a noble council convened by the king, outrage erupted the moment they heard they were expected to fund schools for commoners. Why should peasants learn to read? Their only purpose is to work for us. That old fool David ought to be hanged. King Cheno seethed at their selfish protests, his heart filled with contempt. These greedy parasites. Just then a guard stepped forward. Your Majesty, the little girl scheduled for the interview has arrived. Shuayu was escorted into the palace by a maid, only to be unceremoniously left aside. Let her wait here on her own. At the king's orders, she was placed in the vast, empty throne room. The silence pressed down on her, leaving the child trembling. If only Muriel were here with me. 10 minutes passed and still no one came. Shuyu's fear mounted until tears threatened to spill. All the while, King Cheno was watching from above. A guard suggested, shall we send a maid to her side? She looks frightened. But Cheno smirked with cruel amusement. No need. His gaze sharpened. Yes, she's afraid, weak, unsure of herself, but there's a rare steadiness in her too. Not a simple child. Let's go down and see her. Hearing the heavy thud of approaching footsteps, little Shuayu nearly darted away to hide. But when she saw who it was, her eyes went wide. It was Cheno. Forcing herself to stay calm, she stammered out a respectful bow and greeting. Inside though, she was screaming. When did he get here? Don't tell me he's been watching me this whole time. Cheno looked at her in mild surprise. Why aren't you afraid of me anymore? The words made Shuayu shiver again. He was clearly referring to the last time she had stumbled into him. What do I do? The history books say Cheno is violent and quick to behead people. If I slip up here, I'm finished. Desperate, she began flattery mode at full force. My mother always said His Majesty is like a god, someone to be respected, not feared. And last time I wasn't afraid of your Majesty. I was afraid of the unknown lurking in the dark. Only nameless rogues are frightening. Men of status would never stoop to such evil. Having said that, Shuyu smugly thought, there, I've crowned you with enough praise. Surely he won't punish me now, right? Yet Cheno saw through it instantly. He knew the little girl's words weren't sincere, but he wasn't angry. In fact, that kind of flattery was something he was all too familiar with. It reminded him of a boy from long ago, who once groveled just as desperately before his elder sister. Shaking off those unpleasant memories, Cheno turned back to Shuayu. Do you want to attend the Royal Elementary School? Shuayu didn't even hesitate. Yes, she blurted. Deep down she thought, since there's no escaping this, then I'll become an all-powerful mage. Only then can I control my own fate. Hearing this, Cheno gave a faint, knowing smile. That answer is sincere. The scene shifted. Cheno was actually sitting down for tea with Shuayu. Inside, Shuayu was on the verge of collapse. Oh my god, how am I sitting this close to that pig-headed emperor? Suddenly, Cheno asked, why do you want to study? You're only 5 or 6. Shouldn't you be enjoying your childhood instead of burying yourself in books? Shuayu hesitated only a moment before lifting her head with firm resolve. I want to become a mage. Little did she know, the man before her was none other than the strongest sorcerer on the entire elven continent. Hearing her bold declaration, the king couldn't help but smile wryly. So, you think you can ignore the limits of bloodline and chase greatness through effort alone? What he didn't realize was that this adorable little girl was in fact his own daughter. Casually, Cheno asked, your brother, he studies at the Royal Academy, doesn't he? The girl's eyes lit up as she proudly replied, yes. My brother Muriel is amazing. He was chosen by the Grand Scholar and admitted without exams. Deep down, Shuyu thought to herself, And maybe this pig-headed emperor isn't so terrifying after all. Cheno stared at her for a long while before asking, "So then, what can you do?" Xiuyu froze and Cheno sipped his tea calmly. "Did you forget? This is an interview. Show me your talent, I'll be the judge." Xiuyu felt trapped. If I show some low-level magic, it'll look pathetic in front of him. What else can I do? Suddenly, inspiration struck. Hey, time to show them the glory of Earth's basic education. I can recite pi to 100 decimal places. As she rattled off, 3.1415926. Jaws dropped around the room. A child this young, remembering all 100 digits? Incredible. But before anyone could exclaim, Cheno slammed his teacup onto the table with a sharp crack. Dark energy radiated from him as a wave of dread consumed his chest, the same suffocating fear once imposed by his elder sister. His face twisted with shadow as he stood abruptly. "Guards, remove her from the palace." Xiuyu was left utterly baffled. What did I do wrong? One clueless guard still muttered in awe. "She's amazing. I even verified it with appraisal magic. Every digit was correct." But a single icy glare from Cheno silenced him instantly. Only when she overheard the maid's whispering did Xiuyu realize the truth. Only the late ruler, Cheno's elder sister, had ever recited 100 digits of pi with such precision. So that's why he was reminded of her. And so Xiuyu was escorted to the carriage. Staring at the palace as it faded into the distance, she sighed in defeat. "Great. I just shot myself in the foot." Rumor spread that when the Weir family's youngest daughter met the king, His Majesty stormed off in anger. Nobles whispered among themselves, "What did she do? Such reckless audacity. The Weirs are surely in trouble now." Xiuyu spent an anxious, difficult week, but thankfully Cheno gave no orders to punish the Weir family. When Anner heard about it, he nearly blew his top. This time the invitation came from Dr. David and all the leading scholars would be there. But Anner, who hated studying, would only find it boring. "Xiuyu, you've never traveled far before. Aren't you scared? Did you pack enough things?" "Don't worry, mother. With brother Muriel there, I'll be fine." Dr. David had invited Muriel and Xiuyu to stay at his estate, supposedly to discuss a special academic project. But Xiuyu suspected this was Muriel's way of arranging a trip to ease her mind. "Father, don't worry. I'll take good care of Xiuyu," Muriel promised firmly. Yet the Baron still frowned. Did Dr. David really write her name personally on the invitation? Yes. He's one of the king's most trusted men. I don't think His Majesty is truly angry. After all, why would a monarch take offense at a child? But Anner snapped, furious. "Big brother, don't you feel guilty? The Weir family might be on the brink of disaster, and you're taking that little witch out to hide, acting like it's some noble duty." Without another word, Muriel grabbed his younger brother and gave him a harsh scolding. "You brat, get over here. Well, are you behaving now?" And so Muriel set out on the journey with Xiuyu by his side. Along the way he asked gently, "Are you still bothered by the king's interview?" Xiuyu knew her brother had arranged this trip to the estate just to ease her mind. She didn't want him to worry, so after a pause she admitted, "Yeah, everything was fine at first. Then suddenly he just scowled and walked out. I don't even know why." Muriel reassured her, "It doesn't matter. Even if you don't enter the Royal Elementary, having Dr. David as your mentor is just as good. His Majesty has always been unpredictable. You shouldn't take it personally." Xiuyu blinked in surprise. "You can just say the king is unpredictable, like that?" Muriel chuckled. "There's no one else here, it's fine." Only then did Xiuyu dare to vent her feelings, grumbling, "That pig-headed emperor is really infuriating." Muriel reached over and ruffled her hair with a gentle smile. "Xiuyu, you're the first child the king has ever interviewed personally. That alone is an achievement to be proud of." Warmth spread in Xiuyu's chest. "Big brother Muriel really is the best. After opening up to him, my heart feels so much lighter. Maybe he really does have some kind of magic that heals people." At Devonshire Castle, Dr. David was already waiting for their arrival. Muriel stepped forward with a polite bow. "Forgive us for disturbing you, teacher." Dr. David chuckled. "Nonsense. I've got plenty of manuscripts that need your help sorting through." Xiuyu glanced around in awe. "So this is the estate of the famed grand scholar Dr. David? So elegant. Just then His Majesty appeared outside. A knight at his side cautioned, "Sire, Dr. David seems to have guests. Should we change course?" Cheno scoffed. "What nonsense. Since when does the king give way to anyone?" Moments later, the king quietly arrived at the Devonshire Castle annex. Dr. David tensed, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty, your sudden visit shames my humble home. I shall order the estate sealed immediately to prevent disturbance." Cheno waved it off. "No need. The palace is stifling, so I came out for a walk. Don't bother with ceremony. I heard you've gathered scholars and notables here, working on new textbooks." "Yes, Your Majesty," David answered quickly. "Once the Public Education Act passes, textbooks will be needed. I plan to present them once completed. Many scholars and men of letters are gathered here now. If they knew you personally came to oversee the work, they'd be honored beyond measure." The old scholar's eyes welled with emotion. "I am truly moved, sire. Tomorrow morning, I shall arrange for them to greet you formally." Cheno dismissed him with a wave. "See, don't try to arrange my schedule. I'll look around as I please. You carry on with your work." The next day, Dr. David went to see the king, only to be told His Majesty had gone hunting. With a sigh, he muttered, "The will of the king is unpredictable. I'd best just adapt to whatever comes." Meanwhile, Shuyu was devouring food like crazy. The flavors here were simply irresistible. "This place is amazing. Absolute paradise." Devonshire Castle brimmed with a rich, artistic atmosphere. Shuyu adored it instantly and played to her heart's content. When the evening banquet began, Muriel brought Shuyu along. She pouted, "If I'd known we were coming to a banquet, I would have brought a pretty dress." With a snap of his fingers, Muriel conjured a dazzling gown onto her. Shuyu's eyes sparkled in awe. "Wow, Big Brother even knows transformation magic." Muriel explained casually, "It's just mid-tier illusion magic. It'll only last 15 minutes. Shuyu didn't care in the slightest, grinning proudly. "Even a second's enough. I'm the prettiest one here tonight." After spending a few more days keeping Shuyu company, Muriel finally turned to the work Dr. David had assigned. Their task was to draft a set of foundational textbooks for the Elven Kingdom, covering all fields of study. Muriel suggested including Old Elvish, but not in an overly complex way. Dr. David agreed with the idea, though he admitted they still hadn't settled on a proper title. It needed to sound official and dignified, yet not overly cumbersome. That was when Shuyu piped up. "Why not call it the Standard Textbook for Compulsory Education? Education should be every citizen's duty." Some of the scholars frowned. "But learning should be a joy. Why frame it as an obligation like labor?" Shuyu answered firmly, "If education is left to choice, many will never get the chance. Only by making it compulsory for everyone can we ensure fairness. Let's call it the Standard Textbook for Compulsory Education. Our generation must work hard for this." Dr. David froze for a moment, his eyes lighting up. "Remarkable. A truth I've chased all my life, revealed by a little girl in a single sentence. A strong youth makes for a strong nation. My life's mission is to discover such rare talent." He turned to Muriel with heartfelt admiration. "Muriel, your sister truly is a treasure." Just as the atmosphere was lively, an uninvited guest arrived, the king himself. The moment His Majesty stepped into the hall, Shuyu caught the sharp scent of blood. She had always fainted at the sight of blood. Her vision went dark and she collapsed on the spot. When she finally awoke some time later, she found herself in an unfamiliar room with no sign of Muriel anywhere. A group of maids entered, speaking gently. "Miss Shuyu, you've woken up. You fainted earlier. It was His Majesty who personally carried you here." They explained this was the annex of Devonshire Castle, a temporary residence prepared by Count David for the king. This morning His Majesty went hunting and brought back a black bear. It was meant as a reward for the scholars, but it seems it frightened you instead. The maid's eyes shone with admiration. The bear was enormous and terrifying, yet the king slew it with ease. Truly remarkable. Only Shuyu felt uneasy. The thought of staying in the pig-headed emperor's quarters made her want to leave immediately. "Miss Shuyu, won't you rest a little longer?" the maids urged. "Your brother Muriel said he'll be in the library until late. If you don't wish to go there." But Shuyu ignored them and rushed to the library to find her brother. Yet when she saw Muriel locked in heated discussion with the scholars, she instinctively hesitated. I shouldn't disturb him. Immersed in his world, he's shining like a star. He shouldn't be interrupted by anything. I'll just return to the resting room instead. By chance the king himself arrived. He told David curtly, "Don't follow me. Go about your work." Once David withdrew, the king let out a quiet breath and casually sat down beside Shuyu, instantly making her freeze stiff. One looked cold and detached, the other awkward and tense. In the vast castle they seemed to be the only two with nothing to do. Just then Shuyu's stomach growled loudly, leaving her red-faced with embarrassment. She reached for some food, but being too small she couldn't grab anything. For a moment she hesitated. Should she ask him for help? Finally she gathered her courage and stepped closer. "I'd like that Black Forest cake. Could you help me get it?" she asked softly. The king sat still, expression as cold as stone. Yet Shuyu held her ground. "I can't reach. You're the only grown-up here." After enough persistence, His Majesty finally extended a hand and passed the little cake to her. Shuyu's eyes curved into a smile as she chirped sweetly, "Thank you." In that moment, the king realized how completely different this girl was from his elder sister. Between them, the atmosphere had become unexpectedly harmonious, almost too harmonious. When the guard entered, he froze at the sight before him. Shuyu batted her eyes and whispered, "I'd like a macaron too, strawberry flavor please." To everyone's shock, the king actually obliged, handing her one without complaint. The guard who had come to report was stunned. His Majesty, serving desserts to a child? And this little girl actually dares to ask him? As soon as the guard stepped forward with business, the king rose and left. Shuyu, however, looked a little reluctant to see him go. The guard couldn't help but mutter, "Your Majesty, Miss Shuyu really has such a kind nature. She doesn't hold grudges at all. Even after what happened last time, which even left me uneasy, she acts like nothing happened." At that, the king shot him a sharp glare. The guard panicked, stammering, "I meant no disrespect, sire. I just think Miss Shuyu is truly different. She feels far more mature than other children." The king replied coldly, "She's just a brat. Now speak business." The guard quickly straightened and reported, "Sire, the Crown Prince of the Boer Empire has sent a secret letter. The messenger has been received and awaits outside."